The same verse, all these four categories, dead meat, blood, flesh of swine, and any food on which any name besides Allah has been invoked, these prohibitions have been repeated in no less than 4 different places in the Quran. Besides Surah Ma'idah chapter number 5 verse number 3, it is also mentioned in Surah Baqarah chapter number 2 verse number 173, in Surah An'am chapter number 6 verse number 145, and in Surah Nahl chapter number 16 verse number 115. The third category of prohibition is وَلَحْمِ الْخِنْزِيرِ, the flesh of swine. If a Christian poses me the question, or a Jew, that why don't you have the flesh of swine, I will quote to him from his Bible. It's mentioned in the Old Testament, in the third book of the Old Testament, the book of Leviticus, chapter number 11, verse number 7 and 8, that the swine, it has parted hoofs and cloven feet. It does not chew the cud. Its flesh is unclean. Thou shalt not have the flesh, neither shall you touch the carcass, because it is unclean. So according to the Jewish law and the Christian law, they are not allowed to have the flesh of swine. This is also mentioned in Deuteronomy chapter number 14. Similar thing about dead meat and blood is mentioned in the Bible. About the prohibition of dead meat is mentioned in Leviticus chapter number 17 verse number 16, as well as in Deuteronomy chapter number 14. The prohibition of blood is mentioned in Leviticus chapter number 17 verse number 14, as well as in Deuteronomy chapter number 12. Let's analyze the scientific reasons of why وَلَحْمِ الْخِنْزِيرِ, the flesh of swine, has been prohibited in Islam. The flesh of swine, that is pork, it harbors 17 different types of helminths. It has roundworm, pinworm, hookworm, you name it, it's invariably there. The most dangerous of the lot is the Taenia solium. In layman's term, it's called as the tapeworm. It is several feet long. It is several feet long and harbors in the intestine. The ova of this Taenia solium, the eggs, it travels through the bloodstreams into almost all the organs of the body. If it enters the brain, it can cause severe brain damage, including loss of memory. If it enters the eye, it can cause blindness. If it enters the heart, it can cause heart attack. If it enters the lung, it can cause severe lung damage. It causes severe damage to various organs of the body. Another dangerous helminth is the Tichinurus tichinosis, TT. But some people say that if we cook the pork very well, these helminths die. There was a research done in America that out of 24 people suffering from TT, 22 had cooked the pork very well. Science tells us today that the normal cooking temperature does not kill the ovas of these helminths. It requires very high degree temperature which cannot be obtained under normal cooking temperature. The pork has got very little muscle building material. It has a lot of fat building material. That's the reason the people who are pork eaters have got tires, have got flabs. The fat gets deposited into the walls of the vessel and causes atherosclerosis, which leads to hypertension and heart attack. That's the reason that more than 50% of the Americans suffer from hypertension. The pig is one of the filthiest animals you can find on the face of the earth. It thrives on feces, muck, and filth. In the villages of India, where we don't have the modern toilets like the one we have, the people go for the call of nature in the open air. And after they come back, the pig goes and clears it up. It's the best scavenger which I know that God has produced. It's the dirtiest animal. It is also one of the most shameless animal on the face of the earth. It's the only animal which invites its friends to have sex with its mate, to have sex with its companion. Imagine. Therefore, there's a saying that if you eat pig, you behave like a pig. That's the reason that in the Western societies, you have dance parties. And after the dance parties, you have swapping of wives. You sleep with my wife, I sleep with your wife. Do you think it's ethical? You eat pig and you behave like one. The fourth category, which is prohibited in that verse, is any food on which the name of anyone besides Allah has been invoked. For example, if you have prasad, which the name of any God besides Allah, like Ram or Krishna, has been taken, it is haram for you. Or if you go to the church during communion, you have that, it's haram. The other prohibited category in this verse is that meat which has been obtained by rifling of the arrows, or meat which has been sacrificed on the stone altars of the gods. All these are haram for a Muslim. There is another verse in the Quran from Surah Maida, chapter number 5, verse number 90, which says, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu, O you who believe, innama khamru wal maisuru, most certainly intoxicants and gambling, wal anzabu wal aslamu, dedication of stones, divination of arrows, rijsum min amali shaitan, fajtanibu lalakum tuflihun. These are Satan's handiwork. Abstain from such handiwork that you may prosper. The Quran says all intoxicants are prohibited. I do not have to go into the details of the bad effects of the alcohol, which all of you may be knowing. It can damage almost all the organs of the body, including the heart, the brain, the eye, as well as liver, causing cirrhosis of the liver. It is associated with several diseases, including AIDS. Some people will say that, see, when we feel cold in the cold countries, what is the harm if we have a little bit beer? I tell them that why don't you sit close to the fire? It will keep you more warm than the alcohol. They say, no, we want to drink something. I say, fine. Why don't you have honey? The honey you drink will keep you more warmer than the beer. But honey doesn't have that kick which the alcohol has. That's the reason they have beer. Today's doctors, they tell us that alcoholism is a disease. It's an ill person.